The subject of today's video was never supposed to be an NFL star, let alone a college football star. He had an unbelievably inspiring story and a very difficult childhood, but he found a way to find a school that wanted him. Except, they didn't. They ended up pulling his offer, and he would have to settle for a school that he wasn't very high on. Thankfully, while he was there, he got the opportunity to become one of the best players in college football, became an All-American, and eventually heard his name called in the top 50 picks of the 2021 NFL Draft. Since then, he's become one of the best rookies in the NFL, is off to a historic start with the Chiefs, and the future is seemingly the limit for him. The guy is a monster, and he's not human. In today's video, we're going to tell his story, how he went from his favorite school pulling his offer to becoming one of the best young players in the NFL. But before we can talk about that, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, and we can do better than that, so quickly be sure to subscribe, smash that like button for the algorithm, and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now, let's get started. So you're probably wondering who the subject of today's video is, and it is none other than former Missouri and current Kansas City Chief linebacker, Nick Bolton. But in order to understand how he got to this point, we first need to go back in time. Nick Bolton was extremely competitive from a young age. When he was 3 years old, he watched football with his dad, and then he turned the living room floor into a stage to reenact the plays he saw on TV. In grade school, he was also extremely competitive, as there was a reading points program system in his classroom, and he set out to read more than anyone else in the class. The guy was competitive, and he brought that to the football field. In fact, he always dreamed of playing professional football for the time he was a little kid. He was strengthened by his mother and his sister, who were both fighting cancer at the same time, and this pushed him every single day. I honestly cannot imagine how hard that was for him, but he really laid it all out on the field, and when he got to Frisco, Texas, he became a high school star. He had solid offers, but he was not being recruited by the football Blue Bloods by any means. One school did stand out for him though, and that was Washington. In June before his senior year of high school, Bolton actually went on an unofficial visit to the University of Washington, and he felt like he had found a good fit for himself. He was extremely realistic, and he knew school saw him as an undersized linebacker, so he thought that was the best he was going to get, and on July 24th, he decided to become a Washington Husky. He didn't want to sign early though, because he actually wanted to sign with a friend at a later date. This was not out of malintent, and honestly, it was the best thing he could have ever done, but Chris Peterson was not a fan of that. His mother said, quote, "They were so overwhelming with him, just pushing and pushing and pushing him." Texas A&M actually sent a scout to watch him a few days later, and he got an angry call from Washington, and he didn't know why. Apparently, it was because an Aggie blog site had published an article talking about how they were going to get Nick to flip to them. But he didn't even have an A&M offer, and Nick was very confused. Washington told him to stop talking to other schools, and now Nick was offended and didn't like that. He said, quote, "I still wanted to at least hear from other places and make sure I was making the right decision for myself, my family, and my future. Each school has different guidelines, and if you commit to Washington, they believe that you should be the only school you're talking to, and that's what their motto was." The pressure was on Bolton to sign with Washington, and in November, it had escalated to a new point. Now, he began to wonder if he had rushed into his decision to commit there, and now, instead of signing his letter of intent, he had a 10-minute phone call with the Washington coaching staff, and this was bad news. Washington decided to pull his offer, and with a few months before signing day, he was forced to restart the recruiting process, yet alone still battle his family being sick. His mom said, quote, "A lot of kids could have just shut down and said I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough." It was just the opposite for Nick. When Washington pulled his offer, that drove him mad. A&M didn't end up offering him, and Bolton's new frontrunners were Louisiana Tech, where his dad played, and Kansas. You could go back and forth and argue which program is more prestigious, and that is not a knock on Kansas, but the Jayhawks are not exactly a high-profile school to play football at. Big-time programs were a little bit concerned about Bolton because he was undersized and never really thought he'd make an impact. Then, he forged a relationship with Missouri's head coach, Vernon Hargraves, and he began to really like his chances. Yes, that is the dad of the former Florida player. He spent the day with linebacker Terez Hall, who's actually a New England Patriot, and Nick decided that Missouri was where he wanted to go to school. Now he just needed an offer. He really felt at home there, and Terez took him under his wing and told him something that would stick for life. He said, quote, "Football doesn't really change. People get bigger and faster, but so do you. Just play with confidence." Bolton was sold. It was so incredibly simple, and he was ready to be a Missouri Tiger. When he walked into Barry Odom's office, he committed at the end of his visit, and then signed with Missouri a couple of days later. Bolton said, quote, "It doesn't get any better than this. Getting to play in the SEC against NFL caliber guys week in and week out." According to 24/7 Sports, though, Bolton was not seen as a future All-American or a Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate. He was a 3-star recruit, the number 39 inside linebacker, and the 1,114th best player in the class of 2018. He was an undersized linebacker and was nowhere on the NFL's radar, but he would quickly make a name for himself in the SEC. As a freshman at Missouri, he was supposed to be a backup, and that is exactly what he was. He would spend time on special teams and would finally get his first real snaps against Alabama as Terez Hall was ejected for targeting, and he came in and made 8 tackles in their loss. At that moment, he showed his potential. He didn't play a whole lot the rest of the year, but he did finish the season with 22 tackles. As a sophomore, he was the backup to Cale Garrett and was not expected to be a star by any means. His season was not anything special, but then Garrett went down with a serious injury, and this would sideline him for the remainder of the year, and Bolton would be forced to step up. Against West Virginia, he was named the SEC Defensive Player of the Week after he had 2 interceptions and had a huge impact in their win. He would later make 12 tackles against Kentucky and a career-high 15 tackles in their loss to Vanderbilt. He ended up leading the SEC with 80 tackles in 8 league games, and Pro Football Focus absolutely loved the player he had become. He ended up leading the SEC Conference with 107 tackles and was one of the best defenders in all of college football. He became the highest-rated linebacker in the SEC, and he was named to the All-SEC third team for his achievements. Going into 2020, he was pegged as a first-round pick and a guy who could once again become a star. Missouri was now under first-year head coach Elijah Drinkwitz, and they began the year with a loss to Alabama in which he had 8 tackles against premier competition. The following week against Tennessee, he had a career-high 17 tackles and 13 solo ones, and the dude was just a tackling machine. He amassed 10 tackles against Florida, LSU, and South Carolina, and that would solidify himself as one of the premier playmakers in all of football. In 10 games, he had 61 tackles and was named a second-team All-American. After his terrific campaign, he would decide to leave for the NFL. So yeah, he was now gone, and the consensus was that he'd maybe be a late first-round pick, but probably a second or third-round pick. This would end up happening as he was taken with the 58th overall pick in the second round to the Kansas City Chiefs. Thankfully for him, he didn't have to move too far, as Columbia is only a few hours from Kansas City, and he'd now get an opportunity to start for a defense that would need him. As you can probably figure out from watching this video, he's done pretty well as a rookie. So far this year, he's had 102 combined tackles with 64 solo tackles. He hasn't forced a fumble, had a sack, or an interception, but his sheer numbers are insane. His best game of the year came in an overtime win against the Chargers, as he had 14 total tackles in that game, and he also went off against the Titans with 15 tackles. In the first half of the year, he was on pace to be one of the best rookie linebackers of all time, and had he finished with that pace, he would have had the 4th highest tackle total for a rookie defender in NFL history. In that game against the Titans, he became only the second Chiefs player since 1999 to record 4 TFLs in a game. That's kind of crazy if you think about it, but Bolton is only 21 years old, will likely be selected for the all-rookie team, and his role will only expand. While I would like to see him do a little bit more than just tackle, coaches are going to nurture his talents, and I think they're going to turn him into one of the best linebackers in the NFL. As a Mizzou fan, it was great to watch Nick in college, and I'm really happy to see him doing well on the Chiefs. This guy is not human with how he gets to the ball, and he has a very bright future. What do you guys think though? If you're a Chiefs or a Mizzou fan, let me know what you think of Nick Bolton. Who is your favorite rookie defender or rookie in the NFL, and what player or topic should I do in my next video? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section, smash that like button to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.